they took her off because she was crazy. Optics are bad, but she's crazy. She may be a capable Fox News commentator. That is really not the criteria we should be using to pick someone for such an important office.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First, your home for unfiltered conservative commentary and patriotic analysis. Before we dive into today's explosive content, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell because we're bringing you the truth that the mainstream media won't tell you. And if you want to support real American journalism and help us continue fighting for conservative values, head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/AmericaFirst, where you can support us for as low as $5 a month. Every dollar helps us stay independent and keep bringing you the content that matters. Today we're breaking down yet another disgusting display from one of the most corrupt politicians in Washington, Adam Schiff, as he attempts to derail what could be one of the most qualified nominees we've seen in years. What you're about to witness is a perfect example of everything that's wrong with the radical left's approach to justice and their complete disregard for the American people's mandate for change.
Now, Senator Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's certainly, I think, come to all of our attention that the bench is held in a lower regard today than probably at any time in our lifetimes. So there are a lot of reasons why that is the case. But it is, I think, all the more incumbent, given the lack of public confidence in a truly independent judiciary, that we really carefully examine each of the nominees that come before this committee and ask ourselves the question, is this going to contribute to the solution and increase confidence in the judiciary, or is it going to contribute to the problem? And it seems to me that too many of the nominees we have examined, like Emil Bove, will only bring further discredit and a lack of public confidence in the judiciary. Is it really likely that members of the public, for example, are going to have confidence that decisions that a U.S. attorney, in this case, Piro, are being made on a truly nonpartisan, impartial basis? We're going to face the same crisis of confidence in the bench now in the Justice Department, and we are. She may be a capable Fox News commentator. That is really not the criteria we should be using to pick someone for such an important office. I spent almost 6 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. I venerate the work that's done by the Justice Department, at least I have in the past. I have the most profound concerns over what I see the department doing now, the extraordinary breaches of every policy of the department on both sides of the aisle, the dismissal of corruption cases because a allegedly corrupt public official is beneficial to the president on unrelated policy matters. I don't know where this is heading, but putting Piro in this position of responsibility is just going to contribute to the problem. I mean, if you look at what those who know her best had to say about her, as my colleagues pointed out, Fox had to pay Dominion $787 million for defaming that voting system. And after reviewing one of Piro's monologues after the 2020 election, Fox News executive Jerry Andrews emailed network executives that her monologue was rife with conspiracy theories and BS, and is yet another example why this woman should never be on live television. I mean, even her own people on Fox thought she couldn't be trusted to be on TV, on their own network. And after the show was briefly taken off the air, Fox News producer Justin Wells described, they took her off because she was crazy. Optics are bad, but she's crazy. Well, her own executive producer also described her as nuts. Are we going to put someone that even Fox, and I'm not a particular fan of Fox, but even Fox thought was crazy, nuts, couldn't be trusted on live television? We're going to trust her with the lives and liberty of people in the District of Columbia? Her confirmation is only going to add to the lack of public confidence in the Justice Department. I asked her in my questions for the record if she stood by these comments she made that her own executives thought were nuts and crazy and not worthy of being on television, and she would not respond. That should give us a lot of pause about putting someone in a position of responsibility like that. I would just appeal that when it comes to the Justice Department, when it comes to the bench, that we raise the bar a little. Let's not put people on the bench who are encouraging Justice Department lawyers to say F you to the court, or dropping legitimate corruption cases, or lying so badly on national TV that they cost their own network hundreds of millions of dollars. We could do better than that, and I would hope and urge that we will, and urge a no vote
Senator
on
Blumenthal.
Piro.
Let me start by saying something that every patriotic American needs to understand. The confirmation process we're witnessing here isn't about qualifications, it's not about competence, and it's certainly not about what's best for America. This is pure political theater designed to obstruct and delay the implementation of the America First agenda that the people voted for overwhelmingly. Adam Schiff, the same man who lied to the American people for years about Russian collusion, the same man who weaponized his position on the Intelligence Committee to leak classified information, the same man who has spent his entire career putting partisan politics above the interests of his constituents, now has the audacity to lecture us about public confidence in our institutions. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Let's address his opening statement where he claims that public confidence in the judiciary is an all-time low. He's absolutely right about that, but what he conveniently fails to mention is who's responsible for that crisis of confidence. It wasn't conservative judges making partisan decisions. It wasn't Republican-appointed prosecutors going after political opponents. The crisis of confidence exists because of people like Adam Schiff and the weaponized justice system they've created. For 4 years, we watched as the Justice Department was turned into a political weapon against Donald Trump and his supporters. We saw prosecutors twist the law, we saw judges make decisions based on politics rather than jurisprudence, and we saw a two-tiered system of justice where Democrats walked free while Republicans were prosecuted for minor infractions. And now, when we finally have the opportunity to restore integrity to these institutions, Schiff wants to obstruct qualified nominees who might actually enforce the law fairly. When Schiff talks about Emil Bove bringing discredit to the judiciary, what he's really saying is that he's afraid of having honest prosecutors who will apply the law equally. Bove's qualifications are impeccable. He's a seasoned attorney with extensive experience in complex litigation and federal prosecution. But none of that matters to Schiff because Bove represents something the left fears more than anything else: accountability. The real issue here isn't Bove's qualifications or Piro's background. The real issue is that these nominees represent a return to constitutional principles and equal application of the law. They represent an end to the politically motivated prosecutions and selective enforcement that have characterized the past administration. That's what terrifies Adam Schiff and his fellow Democrats. Let's talk about Schiff's attack on Piro's background at Fox News. This is particularly rich coming from a party that has installed former CNN contributors, MSNBC hosts, and left-wing activists throughout the federal government. Somehow, when Democrats appoint media figures to government positions, that's perfectly acceptable, but when a conservative media personality is nominated, suddenly that's disqualifying. The hypocrisy is staggering. But more importantly, let's examine what Schiff is really objecting to. He's upset that Piro questioned the integrity of our election systems. He's upset that she raised concerns about voting irregularities and demanded transparency in our electoral process. In other words, he's upset that she did exactly what any patriotic American should do when they see potential problems with our democracy. The Dominion lawsuit that Schiff keeps referencing is a perfect example of how the establishment uses lawfare to silence dissent. Fox News was forced to pay that settlement not because they were wrong about election irregularities, but because they couldn't afford to fight a prolonged legal battle against a company backed by unlimited resources and political connections. The settlement was a business decision, not an admission of wrongdoing, and every honest observer knows it. When Schiff quotes Fox executives calling Piro crazy or nuts, what he's really doing is weaponizing internal corporate communications taken out of context. Anyone who's worked in a high-pressure media environment knows that executives often use hyperbolic language when discussing programming decisions. To use private communications as evidence of unfitness for public office is a new low, even for Adam Schiff. But let's dig deeper into what this is really about. Schiff spent 6 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, and he claims to venerate the work of the Justice Department. What he venerates is a Justice Department that serves the political interests of the Democratic Party. What he venerates is a system where Hunter Biden's laptop gets buried while parents at school board meetings get investigated as domestic terrorists. The extraordinary breaches of department policy that Schiff references aren't breaches at all. They're corrections. When he talks about the dismissal of corruption cases, he's referring to the end of politically motivated prosecutions that never should have been brought in the first place. When he talks about policy breaches, he's really talking about the restoration of constitutional principles and due process. Schiff's claim that corruption cases are being dismissed because officials are beneficial to the president on unrelated policy matters is pure projection. This is exactly what the Obama and Biden administrations did for years. They protected their allies while prosecuting their enemies. Now that we have an administration committed to equal justice under law, Schiff is panicking because he knows that means accountability for the crimes committed by his side. The senator's emotional appeal about trusting Piro with the lives and liberty of people in the District of Columbia is particularly laughable. This is coming from someone who supported prosecutors who destroyed the lives of January 6 defendants with excessive charges and pretrial detention. This is coming from someone who remained silent while peaceful protesters were held in solitary confinement for months without trial. Where was Schiff's concern for lives and liberty then? What we're witnessing here is the death throes of a corrupt establishment that knows its time is up. Adam Schiff and his allies understand that nominees like Piro and Bove represent an existential threat to the two-tiered system of justice they've spent decades building. They know that honest prosecutors will investigate the crimes that have been covered up, will prosecute the corruption that has been ignored, and will restore faith in our institutions by applying the law equally to everyone. Schiff's call to raise the bar is particularly hypocritical when you consider the nominees that Democrats have confirmed over the past 4 years. They confirmed judges who couldn't define what a woman is. They confirmed prosecutors who refused to prosecute violent criminals while going after peaceful protesters. They confirmed officials who lied under oath and weaponized their positions for political gain. But now suddenly they're concerned about standards. The American people see through this charade. They elected Donald Trump precisely because they wanted to drain the swamp and restore integrity to our institutions. They voted for nominees who enforce the law fairly, investigate corruption honestly, and serve the American people rather than the Washington establishment. That's exactly what nominees like Piro and Bove represent. When Schiff talks about people who encourage Justice Department lawyers to say inappropriate things to the court, he's projecting again. For years, Democratic prosecutors have shown contempt for judicial process, leaked information to friendly media outlets, and used their positions to advance political narratives rather than seek justice. The only difference now is that we have prosecutors who are willing to fight back against judicial overreach and political persecution. The real crisis of confidence in our justice system didn't start with conservative nominees. It started when the FBI raided a former president's home over classified documents while ignoring far more serious violations by his predecessor. It started when prosecutors charged political opponents with process crimes while ignoring clear evidence of corruption by their allies. It started when judges made decisions based on political considerations rather than legal precedent. What Schiff and his allies fear most is accountability. They fear prosecutors who will investigate the origins of the Russia hoax. They fear judges who will apply constitutional principles rather than political preferences. They fear a justice system that treats all Americans equally under the law, regardless of their political affiliation or connections. The confirmation process we're witnessing is about much more than individual nominees. It's about the future of American justice and whether we'll return to constitutional principles or continue down the path of political weaponization. It's about whether we'll have prosecutors who serve the law or prosecutors who serve the Democratic Party. Every patriotic American should be paying attention to this process because it will determine whether we can restore faith in our institutions or whether they'll continue to be tools of political oppression. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the choice couldn't be clearer. Adam Schiff's opposition to these nominees isn't based on their qualifications or their character. It's based on fear that they'll actually do their jobs honestly and fairly. It's based on panic that the era of two-tier justice is coming to an end. It's based on the recognition that accountability is finally coming for those who have abused their power for political gain. The American people didn't elect Donald Trump to maintain the status quo. They elected him to change it. They didn't vote for more of the same corrupt practices that have plagued Washington for decades. They voted for nominees who would clean house and restore integrity to our institutions. That's exactly what we're getting with nominees like Piro and Bove. These are qualified, experienced professionals who understand that their job is to serve the American people, not the political establishment. They understand that justice should be blind, that the law should be applied equally, and that our institutions should serve the Constitution rather than partisan interests. Schiff's desperate attempts to derail these confirmations only prove how necessary they are. His hyperbolic rhetoric and selective outrage demonstrate exactly why we need prosecutors and judges who aren't beholden to the Washington swamp. His very opposition is the strongest endorsement these nominees could receive. Patriots, this is why your support is so crucial. The establishment media won't tell you the truth about these confirmation hearings. They won't explain what's really at stake or why Adam Schiff is so desperate to stop these nominees. That's why independent voices like ours are essential, and that's why we need your support to keep fighting for the truth. Remember to hit that like button if this content opened your eyes to what's really happening in Washington. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest analysis of the swamp's desperate attempts to maintain power. And please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/America First for just $5 a month. Your support allows us to stay independent and keep bringing you the unfiltered truth that the mainstream media won't report. The battle for the soul of American justice is being fought right now in these confirmation hearings. Adam Schiff and his allies represent the old, corrupt way of doing business. Our nominees represent hope for a better, more honest future. The choice is ours, and the time to act is now. Until next time, patriots, keep fighting for America first.